Welcome back to the weekly game drive with Basil and Sky. This is a weekly game show where we just, cover the game news of the week that piqued our interest. And yeah, that's kind of about it. I am Basil, and with me
Is me. Me. Hello. No, I'm Sky. That's me. I'm Sky. Haha.
it's a me, Sky Rio. I don't know.
Yeah.
So today we have a few topics, not as many as the last couple weeks, but that's because it's what I would consider the calm before the storm. But there's definitely some nice tidbits, some big news, and this will probably be a shorter episode than usual. But who knows? Maybe one of us will go on a very long tangent about some random thing. All right. So the first topic's kind of the smallest one. I figured we'd kind of do that one first. And there's just a new Sherlock Holmes game was announced called Sherlock Holmes Chapter 1 for 2021. This game is being developed by Frogware, which I am not familiar with any of their previous games. And let's see, it releases in 2021 on Steam, Epic Game Store, and GOG. So they haven't confirmed it being a console game, which is interesting. I assume it'll come to console. All the other, like the Sherlock Holmes Crime and Punishments games came to consoles and stuff. But it's about a young Sherlock Holmes. The trailer is just kind of like showing a little bit in engine, showing the story. It's more of a double A game, looks like. But I like Sherlock Holmes stories. I haven't actually played those games, but I do want to try them at some point because I'm just a huge fan of the IP. And I think this could be interesting, like doing it like a young Sherlock Holmes and seeing an investigative game from his, as they put it, Frogware described it as cavalier, arrogant, and naive Sherlock Holmes, but he still has all
Yeah.
the raw talent. But yeah, oh, by the way, this is from PC Gamer.
Yeah. Yeah. I noticed. So I've never played any of the Sherlock Holmes games, but I've seen people play them, and usually my reaction has been fairly positive. I mean, they seem like interesting games that are indeed that like double A budget kind of tier. They're not like super hardcore or anything like that. I don't know. I'm kind of glad they're keeping like the puzzle sort of like genre alive right now, because
Yeah,
like puzzle games are pretty rare. Slash those kind of like uh, I wouldn't say puzzle like it's sort of like a detective story kind of game is kind of not around.
that's something that I think there's kind of a hole in the gaming market for. Like, I mean, some games kind of have detective elements you see with something like The Witcher, which we'll talk about later, but that has a huge detective kind of element to it, but it's not really putting together clues and figuring something out. It's more of like investigating, but your character does all the work. Whereas in something like, and what I kind of hope this Sherlock Holmes game can imitate is like LA Noir, where like you have to interview people and you have to like figure out who's lying to you and who's telling the truth, and you have to put the case together by yourself, and you can fail cases, which is something that I don't think we see a whole lot of. And I think that type of game, there's definitely a market for it, or at least I would think there is. No.
No, no one liked LA Noir.
Yeah, this is
Okay,
a pretty
no one
garbage
liked
game.
it. I'm just kidding. I liked LA Noir. I thought it was fine. It's just I don't know. It's a genre that like not everyone is super into.
Well, it takes
I
big
mean,
brains to solve those mysteries. So,
let's consider that Rockstar had, they had Rockstar behind them, not because it was a different studio that actually made LA Noir. But even with that kind of backing, the game didn't get a whole lot of like crazy fanfare when it came out. It was like a lot of people were like, "Yeah, it's a game," and then a lot of them were like, "It's pretty solid." And then we had people who were talking about how it was kind of brain dead. Like it was pretty easy to tell certain people were lying and certain people were all that. And instead of being like a cool capture of their technology, it was more like a lot of people are like, you got a lot of bad actors.
well, yeah, some of the acting's not great. I think that the main characters do pretty good, but I mean, I feel like LA Noir now is considered kind of a cult classic, though. Like, I don't know. I mean, they remastered it, so there was a demand for that at least, and they put it on Switch, and I believe it sold pretty well. But I don't know. I think it's cool to just see different types of games, and I would like more of those types of puzzle games instead of, because most detective games, like even stuff like the Batman Arkham games, it's like the illusion of being a detective game, because like, oh, you use your X-ray vision and then you find a clue, and it's like, yeah, but you're not really putting together and deducing anything or organizing the information and kind of figuring stuff out. Oddly enough, I actually played what was it? Assassin's Creed Unity not too long ago. And there's
Yeah.
like a whole detective game within that game where like there's a bunch of quests where you have to investigate murders. They're like side quests,
Okay.
and you have to put together a bunch of clues, and you can get you have to you'll have like six suspects, and you can accuse the wrong person.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah, I was so random to me to find that in that game. I was like, why is there like an entire detective game underneath an Assassin's Creed game? But yeah, I don't know. I like those types of things. I find them engaging in the sense that they kind of make you have to think more as a player instead of just, the kind of, oh, that's a clue, go press A, and then your character figures out everything for you. But I don't know. I mean, who knows? Because it's a double A game, I don't really have the highest of expectations, and it's the type of game I would probably wait till it's on sale or use it through Game Pass or something. But be interesting.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, this is fine. I'm totally cool with them having another Sherlock Holmes game. I find it interesting though. The one thing that probably the only part I was like, huh, was the fact that they're talking about a younger version and they're making him quote unquote Aryan and all that. And I'm like, okay,
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah. So
Also, I guess that means that Watson won't be a part of it, which is kind of interesting.
it could talk about how he meets him.
Yeah, but I mean, he meets Watson when they're a little bit older in the books anyway. Like, because Watson.
Who cares about the books, Basil?
I care, Sky. I care.
Oh, okay, okay. I'm sorry, you care. My bad. I don't think there's more to say on that since neither of us have a lot of experience with the
Yeah,
games.
yeah. Maybe before it comes out, I'll give those older games a try. If it, once we see gameplay and if it looks pretty decent. But yeah, let's move on to our next topic. This one's a slightly more, what would prestigious be the word?
Oh
Um,
boy, I
what?
was having a prestigious sleep during it. That's for sure.
Ooh, snap! You're saying this is the last time you'll watch this video? That didn't really work.
This is the last of us having an interest in the last. That's not.
No, I mean,
It's
and I was gonna
bad.
say this is the last of us talking about this, but that's probably not true because we'll probably talk about it around the time the game launches, and I mean, I'm eventually going to play it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so The Last of Us Part Two had its state of play where they revealed, I think it was like what, and there was a fair amount of gameplay
It was.
systems, and then they had an 8-minute gameplay section at the end that was unbroken.
Yeah.
So okay, I guess I'll go first because I have a few things. So there's a few big things to me that kind of stand out. Um, One, like on the more pessimistic side, I think there's a clear downgrade in this than what we saw in 2018. Because like in the 2018 gameplay segment they showed, I feel like it was way more polished and the animations looked better than in this, and it looked way more dynamic. This looked more like a realistic video game. And, I think that's a good thing and a bad thing because in one, it's like, oh, you could call it a downgrade. And two, it's like, no, they made a very scripted demo in 2018 that was not realistic. And this is actually what the game is going to look like in play, which is fine. But on the more positive side, I do think I mean, so it's Naughty Dog and it's kind of exactly what you'd expect. It has top of the grade animation, like amazing dialogue, and like the NPCs feel more real in this game from
Yeah.
what I've seen than most games. Like, and when she's like, it's brutal when she's stabbing these people and stuff. I was kind of in conflict because a lot of it doesn't look that amazing to me from a visual standpoint as I kind of expected. Like, I've seen better looking games, like environments, I should say. I've seen better looking environments in games.
Yeah.
That being said, I don't think I've seen better animations on humans. Like, I think they probably are at the peak of like just making people feel natural.
I find that interesting you say that because the whole thing I felt is you mentioned how like you feel some of the animations and stuff are a little jank, but you still think the people have some of the best. I personally was like, yeah, they look like people animations. that was the thing I walked away with. Was I from a visual standpoint, I was very much like, this looks like a slightly more polished Last of Us from visual fidelity, but like only in like maybe like I can't explain it. Maybe it's like the little stuff, like the little details and stuff. Like
Yeah,
I can tell that this feels like a game visually, just like Ghost of Tsushima, from what we've seen, where it's like at that like that tilt, that like little tilting point where if they did something wrong, it would start running really poorly,
yeah.
and it definitely feels like one of those games that like I feel like they were creating it and then they were like, oh man, but maybe we should be like making it for the PS5, and
Yeah.
there's something that they said later that we should talk about that relate, or we can talk about now to relate to The Last of Us if you want, though.
I mean, I think we can talk about that in a second, but I did want
Okay.
to mention a couple other like things because you did mention
Yeah.
the little details, and I think that's something that Naughty Dog is exceptional at, and I think that's something that really does help their games is they nail those just the little details of the world. I mean, when she throws the this is kind of a dark moment when she throws the Molotov and like you hear the dog like whining as it's dying, and I'm like that's like
Yeah.
hard to listen to, and it's kind of realistic, and most people probably wouldn't put that in a game. But that and I the thing that broke my immersion in the entire trailer was in the apocalypse in like 18 years from now, why is somebody playing a shiny brand new PS Vita? Why in the world, if you're patrolling an area, are you? Because like, okay, so she swims up to this person. I'm like, wouldn't this person hear her? And then they show that the person has earbuds on and is listening to a PS Vita that they're playing. And I was like, I get it, it's like an Easter egg, but it was so dumb. And I'm like, that's just a plot device. Like she would literally, why would you ever be doing that?
I also like how. All right. There is
Where is
one
she
thing about
charging that
that.
thing? How did the battery last this long?
No, you know what my problem is? My problem is more that just Ellie's just indiscriminately killing people at this point.
Well, yeah, she's getting
Like,
revenge or whatever.
she's getting revenge, but you know something? From a trailer perspective, it really just feels like she's just going around mowing down people.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's because they're trying to show off the gameplay, though.
I get that. No, I get that. But like, all right. This is one of those cases where like we're in a post-apocalyptic world, and some part of me wonders if this is literally the case where like every group of people you're going to run into, unless it's a story scripted segment, is probably an enemy. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah, I would assume so.
all right.
I mean, but that's how
I
it works most games, right? Like, it's most
I
of the
get that,
time.
but Naughty Dog is going for this kind of like, oh, we're telling a real story, blah blah
Yeah, but
blah,
don't you
or
know, in
something
the
that
apocalypse,
impacts
it's
you.
not the monsters that are bad, it's the people.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's me being like, I'm really sick and tired of seeing this aspect of humanity that's like just completely deplorable and doesn't want to showcase any of the good in people. And maybe that even says something about the first game,
Yeah,
because
because
spoilers, Joel is a monster, and what he did ultimately led to a possible cure being totally fucked over.
yeah, well, that's the thing. The Last of Us is a game series about the worst in humanity. So it's kind of like
Yeah.
what you'd expect. If it suddenly felt like Uncharted or whatever, or like Happy Go Lucky, it wouldn't be The Last of Us. You know, you'd be like, what in the world is this?
Yeah, but if I want like the worst of humanity, I'll go play a near game, because then I'll also have a weird acid trip at the same time.
But
Like,
I was gonna say, I think that's more of a subjective thing.
yeah, I'm not really being fair in that regard, and I'm just nitpicking on that. I will say, yeah, all right. I'm gonna come out swinging for a sec, because I kind of have a lot of dissent against The Last of Us 2. Not. I don't know anything about the leaks. I'm not one of those people. I also have nothing wrong with LGBT representation. It's fine. They already established Ellie
Yeah, like
after
this
that
isn't
one
something they
DLC.
just changed her
Yeah,
character.
yeah. So I don't care about that. My problem is that from what I've seen, I felt I was just watching The Last of Us. If you get what I mean by that, I feel like
I
I'm just watching the
do
same game with
understand what
a
you're
bit
saying.
more. Like, I'm just seeing that game again, and with a little more added on top, like some new.
They broke new ground. They
They
added a
broke
jump
new
button.
ground. Jesus Christ, that's the biggest thing that like kind of hurt my sort of opinion of it.
I can't wait till God of War 2 comes out and they're like, we've, for the first time ever, a jump button. And I'm just like, I,
Yeah,
okay,
okay.
okay. Because games have literally never done jump buttons before.
I it reminds me of back when Final Fantasy 13 2 was getting footage, and they're like, we added a jump button so that players could traverse because they said they disliked not having it. And I'm like, really? And then they said the same thing about a certain MMO that came out later too. It's just weird. It's so weird that like that's a selling point nowadays.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I think Naughty Dog, they do a good job with making a like an engrossing narrative, but to
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
they're best at kind of the character interactions, and I think that's kind of hard to show off without spoiling stuff. I imagine I'll probably wait till it goes on sale and play it. I assume it'll review extremely well. Naughty Dog games review absurdly well every time. Like, and
Yeah.
I enjoyed The Last of Us. I enjoyed Uncharted, but I don't think any of those games deserve the ratings they get.
I think Uncharted 2 was at this like I felt Uncharted 2 was that game that kind of did for me. I felt everything was on par, and even then, it had a robust multiplayer mode that like was fun to play. Like on top of having a great action-packed, one of the best shooter experiences I've had in a story.
See, my favorite Uncharted is Uncharted 4.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people really like 4, and I never got around to it. That's the one game I haven't played in the series.
4 is
So
good. I really like it. Although it doesn't have, the only issue with 4 is none of its set pieces match like the set pieces of Uncharted 2 or even 3. Like the train set piece in Uncharted 2, I don't think is ever matched in another Uncharted game.
yeah, it's like one of the coolest moments in that game. I mean, say what you will, but like there's a lot about too that like I still to this day love. Like I love the one Tibetan sections. Those are really fun actually because of like the cool like geometry and like
Yeah.
all right, this might be interesting, but that might be something about The Last of Us that keeps me away from it. Like I played the first one and I liked it, sure, but I found myself not as attached to the story as I was more like, I like this gameplay. I wish the game was more fun to play though.
Oh, really? Because most people, it's kind of the opposite. Most people are like, oh, the story is what had me, and the gameplay was kind of just there.
I think the gameplay has a lot of good moments in it, and I feel like people who don't like the gameplay are I find it surprising honestly because like I think the gameplay is solid. I like the idea of like on the fly crafting to create something that's going to actually make the situation easier or utilizing kind of knowing when stealth is a good choice and when stealth is a bad choice.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, to me, like I said, the character interplay between Joel and Ellie is, to me, what completely made The Last of Us worth playing.
It was for the first half for me.
Oh, really? Because I think it's the best near the end.
I think it's really strong towards the end, but like I keep saying that like that ending really like rubbed me the wrong way because
Really? I
I'm
absolutely
really
love it.
sick. I'll be honest. I'm more sick of seeing humanity be a bunch of terrible people than I am seeing them be hopeful.
Yeah, I mean, well,
I
once
I know
again,
that's subjective. It's not fair to the game, but like I guess I'm saying like as I continue to age, I'm more like, can we see the good in the world, please?
yeah, I mean, especially now, we maybe we need to discover hope. That's a reference to Halo Infinite. Um, so yeah, no, there's a fair argument to be made that this is not really the game for right now,
Yeah,
with the way the world is.
I don't think tact is important to them right now. I will say though, there is another one more thing before we like start trailing off in any direction if that's where we're gonna go. Multiplayer is gone. They removed the multiplayer mode, which I'm actually going to. You're about to hear something crazy. I like that gameplay. I liked that a lot in The Last of Us Part 2. It was pretty cool. The fact that you had on the fly crafting in multiplayer too, and the way it was set up was really fun, and I'm sad to see it go.
Yeah, well, apparently they're gonna make a multiplayer only version of Last of Us 2 later.
Okay.
So whether that's done by Naughty Dog
Oh
or
man, I
whatever.
can't wait for The Last of Us Battle Royale.
Oh my gosh. You,
Ah.
you we sigh, but that's actually very possible. But that being said, what was the wait? I forgot. You wanted to kind of branch off into something else?
Oh yeah. So I don't think either of us put it on the docket, and it was actually pretty notable, and I probably should have when I saw it. Sony put out a story recently that mentioned that they have no plans to make any games that work on the PS5 work on PS4, which I was interested in because that means they have no interest in the idea of like a second version. Which, do you know what that means to me? That
What?
means that we are not getting something similar to Xbox's system where they're going to have that cool system where you essentially get like you get the new version if you end up upgrading to Series X. PS5 doesn't care. I don't think Sony cares.
See, I kind of read that article as like PS5 exclusives, like first party exclusives.
Yeah,
Those
I
will
know
be
it
the
read
ones
that.
because I like like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, for example. That's going to release on PS4 and PS5. And if they do the thing where it's like you buy the PS4 version and you don't get the free upgrade to the PS5 version, that would be pretty dumb.
It'd be really obnoxious. I don't. All right. In terms of exclusives, you're right. The article does state that like yeah, the exclusives are PS5 original and they're not going to be on the 4, which I think is fair
Yeah, I mean,
considering the last two are The Last of Us and Ghost of Tsushima. I am curious if this means that the two of them will get upgrades though.
oh, I absolutely suspect they will. Now,
Okay.
will they charge for those upgrades or whatever? Who knows? But I think Last of Us 2 specifically needs like I imagine the definitive, and I'll probably wait and play it on PS5 because I imagine like it's gonna be amazing looking on that.
Do you remember when Sony was like they came out and they looked like they were heroes of the they were trying to be like nice to the consumer,
Oh
like they tried
yeah.
to showcase that they were on our side, and now I'm like, no, you stop being that. You're not on our side anymore because like Microsoft has been killing it. Like they're making me consider getting a Series X instead of a PS5, which is like it would be a big bummer because then I wouldn't get to play a bunch of new JRPGs. Maybe. I say that, but it seems like maybe Microsoft cares about getting them.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. For me personally, like obviously, I mean, I plan on getting both eventually. I'm gonna get the Series X first, and then later I'll get the PS5. But the thing is, like, we're in this situation. I think it's just kind of Sony resting on their laurels, and they're trying to be the Apple of the video game industry, which I think they're doing pretty well. Like, Apple is probably the least consumer-friendly, like, tech company I think that exists. But they
Yeah.
sell insanely well. They have what I consider a cult that like worships them. It's very weird to me the way people worship Apple products as if they're like the next evolution of humanity when really it's like it's just another phone. It's just another computer.
Yeah.
Like there's not much that separates them and they're very anti-consumer. But they're considered the pristine, the luxury, and I think PS5 is going for that angle. They want to be the pristine, the luxury console. There was something that Jim Ryan said recently that kind of gave me a bad feeling is he said, we want to talk about value with the PS5, and I'm paraphrasing, but he essentially said, when I say value, that doesn't necessarily refer to price. That means the best system with the best games. So that tells me that they aren't going to be very competitively priced. So I'm very curious to see what this thing, because like in my head, there's no way in my mind that it goes above $499. Like there's no way. But what if it does? What if it's 550 or what if it's 599? Could you imagine after it during a recession and then they're like, "Yeah, this is a $600 console."
Jesus, I hope not. I really, really, really don't like that idea, but if it happens, it happens, and I'm just gonna have to shake my head at it and be like, yeah, this is fine. It's fine. It's fine.
But anyways, so that kind of does branches into our next topic, talking about like compatibility and stuff. Microsoft put out a pretty extensive blog on their backwards compatibility and what they're trying to do, and I'm just going to cover a couple of the highlights from it. Essentially, they've spent 200,000 hours ensuring that your game library is going to be ready immediately for the Xbox Series X. They have tested thousands of games and they're already playable on the Series X. Essentially, I'm just going to scrunch this down. There's a few things that they're going to be able to do for backwards compatible games. Select titles will be at will be doubled frame rate. So if it's a 30 FPS game, it'll be at 60 FPS. And if it's a 60 FPS game, it'll be at 120 FPS. This is only for select titles because they have to do that on a game-by-game basis. That being said, every single game will run at its best possible native performance. So if a game here, what's an example? Let's just say, I'm trying to think of The Witcher 3. That game has certain areas in the game that run, like even on the Xbox One X, they dip in frame rate, like in the cities. And ideally on the Series X, that stuff will be a solid 60 frames per second always, no matter what. And then it'll be 4K resolution the entire time with no dips. And then any other game in that kind of scenario, it'll run at its peak performance, and then with some getting the boost in frames per second. The other thing is there's this feature that essentially adds HDR to any game. So any backwards compatible game will have HDR on the Series X. Just by the Series X using AI, it'll add HDR. I'm not exactly sure the wizardry behind this, but supposedly it actually works pretty good. And then, what was the other thing? Oh, the other thing is there might be a few games missed during backwards compatibility. And that wouldn't be because the games can't run on the Series X or whatever. It would just be because the developer or the publisher said no, they don't want their game to be backwards compatible.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's kind of all the main bullet points.
I mean, I don't think there's actually a lot to say because this is just generally good news to hear. I really like hearing that they care. Doubling the frame rate is that's really exciting to me. I find that to be actually the most exciting part of that article, to be honest.
I'm really curious to see what games, because the fact that they're pointing that out, that means that there are some games that do it. I assume first party games will all do that.
Yo, can you imagine playing Halo in 120 frames?
I imagine Halo 5 will run at 120 frames per second. Or it's because they specify select titles, and if they've said it was a developer thing, I would assume Halo will. I would assume Forza. Could you imagine Forza at 120 frames per secsecond?
Oh, geez, dude.
But
game's already pretty. Slow down, Gavin.
That's what I imagine backwards compatibility-wise we'll see. And then I imagine some select, mentioned The Witcher. CD Projekt Red has been super supportive of Xbox's push to backwards compatibility into the smart delivery system. So I imagine that Cyberpunk, for instance, I imagine will be 60 FPS, or I would at least hope it will be. And I imagine The Witcher will be able to either, because it doesn't, on the One X, it runs at a decent 60 FPS, but it's not always. Sometimes it dips into 30s and 40s. I imagine it'll definitely run at a solid across the board 60 FPS and maybe 120. I could see that being possible.
Yeah.
But I think this is generally good news, and I like to see transparency, and I like to see consumer-friendly decisions.
It also goes to show that the Series X is on top of it. Microsoft, I said it since Game Pass became a thing, and I started to truly get to use it. Microsoft gets it. They understand what makes a subscription model appealing. And Game Pass Ultimate is one of the best things I can imagine. Not only does it pay for your subscription to Xbox Live, you're getting a crazy library of games on top of it. They don't have to do that, but they do. And I'm over here Sony, why do I still pay $15 to play on your console when I could go play on PC for free, or I could go it's and then I see Game Pass and I'm like I could just pay the same money I would pay Sony but also get games for free.
Yeah, it's a very different approach to me. I think Microsoft is going for it's funny that Jim Ryan was talking about value, but I feel like Microsoft is literally, they're just going for bang for your buck. You get the most games for the least amount of money, and your games carry over with you. Whereas I feel like Sony's going for the traditional hard reset on your library. I know they have some form of backwards compatibility, and we'll see what that is when it launches, but they're going for, this is the next best thing. This is the shiniest, this is the newest, the qualitiest, whatever. And whether or not that'll be true, we'll see later. I think really, if Microsoft comes out of the gate in July with a super strong lineup of this is what to expect, and I don't think either console needs to launch with a bunch of exclusives. I think they need to launch with a couple big ones, and then you release exclusives in the Nintendo Switch launched with one giant exclusive, Zelda, and that was enough. and then they just had new games slowly roll out to constantly keep interest alive. And I think that's what you have to do. And I assume that's what Microsoft and Sony are probably going to do. I expect Sony will probably have more exclusives at launch than Microsoft, and then Microsoft will be like, "This is our road," and like you know how like the MCU would do like a road of movies that are coming out. I assume Microsoft will do something similar, being like, "Okay, so we have Halo, we have Fable, we have Hellblade, we have whatever Obsidian's working, we have whatever and Exile's working, we have Compulsion Games," like, and they'll just list it out, and you'll be like, "Okay, this way I know that my investment will be like I will always have something to look forward to."
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really have anything else to say on that. How about you?
It's good.
Yeah.
I literally have nothing else. Yeah.
Oh, fair enough. Then let's move on to our next topic, which is actually one that I put in here because it actually shocked me. I watched the gameplay live stream of Outriders. I watched it live, and so the first time I saw this game, I was like, "Oh, okay, just another Destiny clone. That looks kind of dumb." And then I watched this gameplay live, and especially when he got to like the character classes, I was like, "This actually looks pretty good." Like it kind of won me over. What do you think about this whole Outriders?
All right, so the first thing I thought the moment I started watching, as I was watching, I was like, "Oh, this is a Destiny," and then as it went on, I was like thinking to myself, like, "Yeah, it's a Destiny. It's like third person though, so that's different." And then once they showed off, I think the thing that really got me is once we got to the very very end, where they revealed, for one. We have to preface all this. There's a lot to say here because I was like the way they handled this was very different from what I expected. For one, they very much treated this like a developer who was coming out with an update system. If you get what I mean by that, like the way they even structured their reveal was very like, "Hey guys, we're going to be revealing to you bits and pieces of the game through the developer literally talking to you about it." And almost like it reminded me a lot of how like an MMO handles it, which is drastically different from something like a Destiny, because Destiny doesn't feel like it. From what I've seen, it doesn't seem like they have a whole lot of community connection.
Nah, I mean they have like small updates for their events and stuff, but like you don't see a lot of big like news or anything from them. I mean it's been a while anyway.
But this is one thing I noticed immediately was that the way they're handling their interaction with the player base is going to be much, much more hands-on, which I think is very good. Because I feel like if you're a live service game, you should have some level of transparency and like talking to your fan base and doing that. But we saw gameplay, and then at the end they revealed I want to say the first class, but they technically showed us two. They showed us the Pyro class, the Pyro like pyromancer or whatever the terminology was. I forget what it was. Nova maybe. And then they showed
the Trickster was the one.
No, they showed Trickster. I meant the one that they showed us initially through like
but that one like they didn't really dig deep into. But yeah, that was like the pyromancer.
You can pick up what's going on with them though.
Yeah.
Which is like, I believe that their guns have like a flame effect, it seems, and then there's also the fact that they have a lot of fire-based techniques. Like they had a flame like wave, they had a bunch of stuff like that. You can pick up what they were putting down, and then they showed us the Trickster, and that was when I was in, because its powers were interesting, and it also made me realize that unlike like Destiny, all right. As someone who played a lot of Destiny 1 and played like none of Destiny 2 because I didn't like where it was going, very much like Destiny's had like you had powers as like your class, but I've never felt like I was playing something like truly different from one another because gunplay feels very similar to one another, and then they have their special grenades, which are just grenades, but like taken from various different like situations, and then they have their unique ability, which those tend to be pretty different, and then you have your melee abilities, which can be pretty somewhat different. But the thing I immediately felt when we saw Trickster was this is different. This is a lot different from the Pyro class. Like it's got a lot of interesting things. Like it has like, and then they showed the skill trees, and I was like, whoa, is this Borderlands? I got like a Borderlands-y vibe from the way their skill trees work, and I immediately was like, this is cool. You gave a lot more customization than I think Destiny does. And on top of that, there's 6 abilities you get to pick between, and who's to say they won't increase that as the game live service goes on.
And that being said, there was quite a few things too that stuck out to me. I mean, the Trickster looks like the way you can mix up gameplay in this looks super like interesting to me. The way it encourages you to get up close to your enemies to refill your health, and the way you can like teleport
Very.
to just get out of
Uh,
the. Hmm?
I was gonna say very Bloodborne in that regard.
Yeah. And I mean, one also I would like to point out, I thought the gameplay looked super smooth and fast. Like it looked like it runs very well and it looked just like super smooth. And I enjoy that type of gameplay when it runs well and plays smooth. Also, the thing that kind of stuck out to me too was at the end they answered some questions. And I mean, this is PR, but they said that the game will not have microtransactions, which is kind of interesting because like Destiny has
Games like this are,
microtransactions. Games like this
yeah,
always have microtransactions. The fact that they didn't specify loot boxes, because most of the time with games they'll be like, oh well, we don't have loot boxes, but we do have microtransactions. Like an example would be like I think Gears of War 5 that doesn't have loot boxes, but it has pretty bad microtransactions. And this game specified no microtransactions. It also specified that this isn't technically games as a service because they said like this isn't something where you just buy, you get a small game and then they grow it. This is actually more like you get the entire game out the box and then you'll get DLC, which I thought was cool of them to say.
yeah. I 100%. I'm glad that that's what they're going for. Sorry, yawning. That's pretty much like how I felt. Yeah, I was like, I'm glad to see that they no microtransactions in a game like this is really cool, especially because remember now remind me, this is Square Enix is publishing this, right?
Yes.
I'm not. Yeah. So consider this: they have another game underneath their belt that is also going to be a Suedo live service game,
Yeah, I was thinking about that the entire time.
and that one has microtransactions and
Like
is going
I
to get a lot
literally
of money out of you.
I was literally thinking about how this game, I can't believe that I'm more excited for this random game than I am for the Avengers.
Yeah. I also something the developer said, which I immediately was like, is this a jab or is this like them being like caring? Is remember they were talking about their lore and they made an interesting comment how they're like, we want all of our lore to be encompassed within the game, so we will give you everything you can. They're like, it's the one thing we care about. We don't want you to feel like you don't have access to it. And I was like, is this a jab at Destiny? Is
Yes,
this a jab
that
at
is a
Final
jab at-
Fantasy? Is this a jab at like it could be a jab at like a lot of things. I
To
was
me
like, damn.
personally, I thought it was a jab at Destiny. Like I literally couldn't interpret it any other way than them throwing shade at Destiny because they're like all of our lore is in the game. We have codexes, we have everything in the game. And I was like, because he was like, you don't have to go to external media to find our lore. And I was like, that has to be a jab at Destiny.
It could be a jab at a bunch of studios, honestly. But the one thing I'll say is, mad respect for that. I mean, I always like when a game company is willing to like point it at other, be like, eh.
Yeah. Well, that's something I enjoy too in a lot of games when they make a codex. I not gonna keep bringing up The Witcher, so I'll actually bring up Halo. Halo Wars 2. Halo Wars 2 has a very comprehensive codex, and it's great. Like you learn more stuff as the game goes on, and then you can read about like the enemy factions and the planets and the worlds, and like I think and Mass Effect I think does that as well, and I think that just helps to because like back in the day, games would have like it'd have like a manual, and the manual would kind of be also the codex. It would tell you about what you're fighting and the conflict and stuff. But nowadays we don't, because it's mostly digital. We don't have that anymore. So you got to put it in the games. It always makes me mad. A Doom Eternal is another good example of a game with like a very comprehensive codex, and I just appreciate that kind of stuff. So that way, like if the world tickles my fancy and I'm like, this is interesting, I can read about it instead of having to look it up online.
Yeah, I 100% have absolutely no issue with having like a good codex because some people say they hate reading. That's fair. I can see where that is, but I feel like the dialogue. By the way, there's dialogue like trees.
Yeah, I know. I noticed that too.
Yeah, I 100% was like, even if I don't read the codex, I feel like I'm gonna get something here. And whether or not I find their actual world super interesting, I don't know. I'm not like super into it yet.
Yeah.
But the one thing I will say, this game, this is kind of like an overview feeling. This game kind of feels like what I was hoping Destiny was when I saw Destiny.
Yeah.
Like, mind you, Destiny's there now. But I'm saying this game is launching already in that state from the looks of it when it gets there. And also 4 classes. That's immediately more interesting. Plus, 6 abilities, so you get to mix and match what you like.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't even tell us anything about the other 3, and I already like that time manipulation class. I think the thing that's really pulling me in is that it's not just like, oh, pick your element, and if you're tanky, the rogue, or a mage. Instead, it's more like, do you like fire? Well, here's a lot of different ways to blow shit up. Do you like time mechanics? Cool, you got a lot of interesting time manipulation powers that will allow you to tackle situations completely different from each other.
The effect when he would like slice them and you could see their skeletons, that was like the coolest thing.
It was really cool. I really I'm gonna say this. You know what this game has that I'm really glad for? Its animations don't make you wait. They are snappy. They happen.
Yeah. Smooth. Like, that's how I would describe it. It looked smooth.
And it also, the thing I noticed, you know how they were showing skill cooldowns and stuff, like at the bottom, like you get an idea of how long it takes to use something?
Yeah.
Those are not long. You are using these a lot. I was like, that's cool. I like that. That's essentially, I get the vibe that this game is... I like Outriders. That's where I'm at. I didn't think I would like it as much as I would. I was kind of like... When they announced it, I was like, uh-huh.
Yeah, same. It has done a good job, and honestly, it might be one of the first next-gen games I buy. Like, besides, like, first-party stuff, but I'm very interested.
Actually, you and I both saw... Didn't we both see the reveal for this, too? Because we were watching the conference together, weren't we?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, because that was the Square Enix conference, remember? We were both expecting to see, like... I was hoping to see some Nier and some other stuff, but ultimately, I think what we ended up seeing, like, here has made me be like, wow, Outriders might actually be, like, a pretty good game. Meanwhile, Marvel's Avengers looks kind of...
Yeah. But anyways, I think that's enough about Outriders. I think they're doing a good job, and I'm excited to see what they show next. But let's move on to our next one. Just pretty quick kind of highlight, because I've mentioned it like 3 times already, but The Witcher official Twitter account recently tweeted that over 50 million adventurers joined Geralt on his journey from Kaer Morhen to Vizima, through Flotsam and Vergen, Velen and Novigrad, to Skellige Isles and Toussaint, and many, many more places, time and time again. Thank you, and may we meet you all on the path again. Essentially, the Witcher series, all 3 games together, have sold 50 million copies, which is kind of an insane landmark for that company and for that series. And I just, wanted to point that out. Those are the type of numbers that you only see from the biggest of franchises. So I thought that was a nice highlight.
Yeah. I'm excited. I'm excited.
Yeah. I mean, Cyberpunk's coming out soon. I assume that game will be pretty huge.
Yeah. I mean, they deserve it. I'm not gonna slight them. I may never have finished. I may not have ever actually gotten around to finishing The Witcher 3 or Witcher 2 because they're very long.
Yeah, but Witcher 2 is kind of rough too.
Yeah, but I think Witcher 2 still has like a lot of interesting things going on in it. But regardless, they're good games. They're well crafted. I didn't regret my time with Witcher 3. I was having a great time through the whole thing. So I'm very happy for them. They deserve it 100%.
Yeah.
Thumbs up. Good job.
All right. So let's move on to our last topic. And this is kind of... Last week, we kind of talked about our predictions for PlayStation 5 and what we thought they would be showing first. And then, lo and behold, they announced that on June 4th at 1 p.m. Pacific time, you will see a look at the future of gaming on PlayStation 5. This doesn't really come as a shock. This had been rumored for a while. Actually, June 3rd was the expected reveal date. But personally, I'm very curious to see what they show. I'm also, like I was saying to Sky, that I don't know that they're going to show the console. I think they might not even show it yet, because they said this is one of many updates they'll have. I'll be kind of disappointed if they don't. This also, apparently, this is going to be about an hour long. So I imagine we will see some good stuff. But yeah, what do you think about all this, Sky?
I mean, all right, this is depends on what we see. That is entirely the question here. I need to see what they're planning to show. I don't have a comment besides once I see it, I will either be like excited or I will be disappointed.
Yeah.
Although I will say that like it's really hard for me to want to support them when they keep shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah, I can
Like
feel that.
as someone I've never been like I've been a big Sony person because I like the PS1 had a lot of classic titles that are a big reason why like I'm probably like playing certain games I am, and the PS2 was a huge influential like thing on me because that's when I probably got to play the most games.
Yeah.
And then move on to the PS3, and they shot themselves in the foot with that stupid price tag and just how much unnecessary stuff they stuffed into it and how bad the firmware was and you name it. And then we get to the PS4 and they win me back because they got this great consumer kind of like attitude of, yeah, they supported used games and stuff like that, but now used games are dying. And yeah, and then there's also the fact that like I've been like super bummed out by like how anti-consumer they've been. Now, this is like here's the thing. Here's the thing. They are a business. I understand that you make business decisions first, but as I say that, Microsoft is over here literally doing everything right.
Yeah.
Like they've not done anything that I am like I hate it since ever since they've been working their way back up from that colossal mess up that was the initial E3 reveal of the Xbox One. They've really turned around. They've showcased that they know what mistakes they made and they're going to make better on them. And it's literally a case where I'm just like, it's hard for me to be excited for the PS5 when like I already feel like the Series X has everything I could want, besides maybe the Japanese exclusives that PS5 will get no matter what because of Japan's favoritism of it.
Well, yeah.
So I guess I'm kind of like melancholy, I guess.
That's fair. For me personally, like I've never I mean, PS2 we had for a while in my house, and I did always enjoy like a lot of the games on that. And after that though, like I pretty much didn't have video games for a while. Then I got an Xbox 360 eventually, and then an Xbox One, and then a PS4. I'm not really like completely like, I'm pretty agnostic. I'll play pretty much on anything except maybe PC. But even then, I'll still play on PC. But when it comes to platforms, I'm not way too like stuck on any device. At the end of the day, what I just want to see is I just want to see some good games, and I want to see games that appeal to me. Like, and I know that's kind of like a little selfish, but it's the one issue I've kind of had with PlayStation's games in the last few years, and even though I've enjoyed quite a few of them, is they're all starting to kind of feel samey to me in the sense that they are all third-person action games. And,
Yeah.
I'd like to see a shooter from them. I'd like to see a platformer. I'd like to see them do something different, you know? Like, I want to see them not rest on their laurels, not get what I would call Ubisoft-itis, where you're just doing open world, open world, open world that all kind of feel the same. And it's like even Ubisoft, they've had to drastically change their approach to games because they just got stuck in a rut. And I think with PlayStation, most of their games are pretty like Ghost of Tsushima. I'm gonna play and I'll probably enjoy, but it kind of just looks like an Assassin's Creed game. Like you have your areas, you explore them, you have your camps and your bandit stuff, and you take those out. And I don't know. I want to see something. And like, Last of Us is just a third person narrative driven game. Like there's nothing really new there. It's just a good looking, well executed game. And I kind of want to see that next step. Like this is next gen. I want to see something different and new that pushes the boundaries. That's not what we've seen before. And I think that's kind of my issue right now. I am annoyed at like Jim Ryan and a lot of the marketing stuff Sony's been. But at the end of the day, like if they make good games, they make good games, and I'm definitely going to get the console at some point. But I definitely I would like them to be more clear on their marketing, especially concerning backwards compatibility, and not act like, I mean, if you remember a few years ago, Sony was like, when Microsoft introduced backwards compatibility to the Xbox One, Sony was like, "Oh, people don't want backwards compatibility. Nobody wants that." This is what they said. And ever since then, I've kind of been a little bit negatively skewed towards them because, like, I don't like this. I mean, I call it the Apple attitude, where it's like you just think you're better than somebody and that your product's automatically better, even though objectively you're offering worse services. And maybe you make better games, but your services are worse. And at the end of the day, you play that game once and then, but you're always using the console and the services. So it's a matter of like I play Last of Us and that's 15 hours and that's it. But then 100 hours of dealing with the services of the console. So I don't know. I'm excited to see what they show, and I hope it's good, and I hope they can kind of wow me. I assume Horizon Zero Dawn 2 will be there, like I said last week, and I assume that'll be pretty insane looking visually. But yeah, I just want to see them kind of get the stick out of their ass. Like I want to see them be a little bit more loose, a little bit more consumer friendly, and a little bit up their own butt.
Yeah, no, I actually feel pretty much the same way.
And
Like,
I want to see the console. Damn it.
yeah, can we please just see the stupid thing?
Freaking tweet a picture of
Microsoft
it. I
has
don't
shown
care.
theirs like forever ago, dude.
Just show us the effing box. I know it doesn't matter to a lot of people, but I want to see what, like, it helps me visualize what I'm going to, be buying. Show me the product that you're going to be selling to me. But anyways,
It's gonna
I
let
don't
me
want to
see
be way
what
too
it is that I'm
pessimistic.
gonna be playing my epic games on.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't want to be way too pessimistic. I do think they make very, very high quality games, and I don't like judge anybody who prefers their console because, consoles are a lot of money and not everybody's in a privileged position to be able to buy multiple consoles. So, yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see what they show.
Yeah, I'm not saying like I'm not. You know, it's one of those things. Like I'm still excited, but like it's like a tempered excitement. You know.
Yeah, cautious optimism. And I think that's a pretty good rule with all of the gaming industry. It's just cautious optimism. Like they always, I mean, this has always been a thing with gaming, but they always promise and rarely deliver.
Pretty much.
So I guess we'll see. You have anything else to add there?
Ooga booga 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 booga.
Perfectly
Yeah,
eloquently
no,
stated.
I don't know. It's basically as far as my feelings go. To be honest with you.
Fair enough. Well, let's kind of just get into our what we're playing segment, and then we'll wrap this baby up. Sky,
Uh-oh.
why don't you go first?
All right. I was gonna probably talk about it, but like I have been playing some PSO2, uh, and I've been playing Monster Train. That game's really good.
So, Fantasy Star
Uh,
Online, have you not been enjoying it?
have you? I take it you've heard nothing then.
Oh, is it not working?
All right, so they decided to launch it through the Microsoft Store on PC. And
Oh.
that launch has led to one of the most obnoxious, annoying, and stupid series of like game crippling bugs that people have ever encountered in their life. Like it's
Mm.
some of the dumbest things. So to give you an idea of what's happening right now, I was thinking about putting this in the news story too, because it's just so baffling. So technically, when you download it from the PC store, you download a launcher, which you then update the game through the launcher. Now you're probably like, all right, so what's the problem with that? Is the launcher just broken? Well, sometimes when you download it, it stops downloading midway through, and then you have to restart the download all over again. And you're probably like, okay, that's insignificant. No, it's leaving something on your PC still. Then there's also the fact that the Windows Store itself isn't even letting people download. Then when people actually got the launcher, some of them started doing it, and then they stopped their download halfway through. Then they found out when they started up again, it corrupted their files.
Hmm.
And then there were some people who got the game completely in and then turned it off. Like let's say they like Alt F4 or something, or they like did something that closed the game, and through or task manage or something like that, like they did something like that. Guess what? Game just corrupted all 60 gigs of the files
Wow.
and deleted them, quotation marks, deleted the game. It didn't though. And then there's another issue where there's crippling lag in all the lobbies right now. And then that's where we get into the other problem, where people were not even able to get into the game. They couldn't get in. And then when they were like, all right, I'm going to reinstall it, they can't reinstall it. Upon installing, the game will finish, and then they click on it, and the launcher won't open. What they found is that because of the way that they went through the Windows Store and the way they went through all of the functionality of how they wanted to implement this launcher, they ended up leading to one of the most headache-inducing reveals that, for some reason, you as the user do not even have permission to the files that you downloaded, and you do not have permission to even delete them. You do not have permission to uninstall them, meaning you have to go through the headache of re-getting ownership of all the files if you want to get rid of them to reinstall a download, or to reinstall it. And even then, that's assuming your launcher works.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been bad, Basil. It's been horrible.
That's
pretty
awful.
I lucked out and had no issues whatsoever. At first.
Oh.
Yep, so I ended up finding out that there's a team that created an individual tweaker. The tweaker is this, like, it's the way that, like, they implemented an English patch on the Japanese game, but they decided we're going to work with the community for NA for the North American release because they want to be able to play the game with normal, or they want to be able to help everybody pretty much. And so the tweaker team has already fixed a lot of those issues. And in the process of me trying to switch over to it, I ended up having to do all that junk that people had dealt with because I ended up screwing my files over, and then that led to a whole other whirlstorm of things that I'm not going to talk about on the podcast because it's really annoying.
Yeah.
But yeah, there you go. That's my PSO2 experience.
Oh man. Well, I'm sorry. That's awful.
All right. I say that, but I did get to play the game for a while, and I got to play it with some friends finally. It's a lot of fun. Exactly what I was expecting. It's what I already knew. It's a very fun action game, MMO hybrid thingy. Even though people are dumb, the internet is very dumb. They are absolutely right to be angry about all these issues with the Windows Store, but then I hear people complain about microtransactions in a free-to-play game, and I'm like, what do you expect?
Yeah, exactly.
Especially because a fair amount of them are cosmetic. Like, a large amount are cosmetic, and even then, you can get them through in-game currency in other ways, so I don't really see what the complaint is. Then again, people love to complain these days. And then Monster Train, though. Let's talk about a good game.
All right.
Monster Train is a deck-building roguelike that came out recently. But it's also a tower defense game at the same time. And I gotta admit, it's probably one of the best indie games of the year. Bar none. I don't think it's going to be eclipsed that easily. It has to be really one-upped.
Do you think an indie game like The Last of Us could beat it?
Absolutely not. I'm going to probably to give you an idea, let me check my Steam library right now just to see how much time I've already put in Monster Train. And I've only owned it since Tuesday, and I like only played it on and off thus far. Because I've been so busy trying to get PSO to work. Let's see, where are you, Monster Train? I've already played 11 hours of Monster Train.
Dang.
So, to give you an idea, it's a brilliant game. I recommend it to anybody that likes that kind of game.
Sure.
If you like a roguelike, it's incredible. It's frankly one of the best things I've played in forever. I can't believe how much replayability is in it either already. Like, I love it. It's so good.
Oh, there you go.
That's all I gotta say. There's a glowing recommendation for it. Go play it.
That sounds like you're having a good time then. So for me, I'm kind of finishing up Stardew Valley. Like, I was talking about this before, but I put about 30 hours into it, and I've kind of enjoyed most of what I played. I've had a good relaxing time, and I'm not going to just completely abandon it. I'll jump into it every now and then, but I'm kind of slowing down on, like, the grind of it. It's kind of less appealing to me. Other than that, though, I haven't really been playing a whole lot. Greedfall, I was playing, and I got, like, I don't know, a quarter of the way through, and I'm losing desire to go back to it. It's very janky, and I don't know. I kind of just need, like, a polished experience right now, or something that, not to say, because Stardew Valley is a polished game, but I need something, I don't know, more action, less RPG, less talking, less farming. But I don't know.
I need something less fun.
Exactly. I
Right,
finished up.
Basil?
Yes, I finished up Halo 2, which was my May Halo game, and then in a couple of days I'll be starting ODST. But yeah, so other than that, not really a
The
whole lot
best
going
Halo
on.
game.
ODST is so good. Um, I'll take
Well, I
that.
mean, it is my favorite, so
Well, that
it's
makes you
it's
have decent taste.
I wait. The way you said that, I don't think you actually mean what you just said.
Listen, I would mean exactly what I mean, and I would say what I would exactly say, and thus you can't infer anything from the inferences that I make.
I'm just gonna. Yeah, all right. You be you, buddy.
Uh, uh,
Okay.
but yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up this episode of the weekly game drive. Next week we're gonna have quite a big episode in the sense we're gonna probably have a lot to talk about, considering what was announced. So we will see you guys all then. Enjoy some peaceful, calm nature because right now the world is on fire.
Yeah. Woohoo!
Exactly. Peace out, everybody.
Yeah. Have a good one. Bye bye.